this is not the big burning issue of the day. But you wouldn't know that because that hasn't gotten coverage because because it's skewed toward we just want to be like everybody else and get married. And so I guess I'm just saying I don't think these things have to be mutually exclusive. I think it would be great if LGBT people were included in Father's Day stories could sometimes include two fathers instead of just heterosexual married people. But I still think there's a place also for the ways in which different kinds of people in our culture are different from other people in our culture.
I wanted to say first I'm the odd woman out on this panel with very limited experience in the academy and journalism, except that everyone on this panel and many of you in the audience have been such an incredibly receptive in developing what ethnic media really need in terms of visibility, resource access, and the enormous cachet the Academy still produces in American society. You are ultimately credentialers. With support from the Knight Foundation, we've been developing you as hubs for growing local ethnic media associations from Detroit to Boston, hopefully soon Columbia, Minneapolis, St. Paul. Outside of California, we have a tremendous potential to help ethnic media break out of their isolation and help journalism schools, departments of communication, or whatever loony enough professor is out there to want to embrace the world, to help create local exchanges of news content, professional development workshops, internships for students who want the remarkable intermediary ethnic media provide so they don't hit communities cold. They can access the Hmong media in Fresno before they start working with Hmong. They can access the Somali media in Minneapolis or the 15 Korean language publications in Atlanta before they start covering Korean American issues. However, I wanted to say that I'm having trouble with the word diversity. It's not diversity, stupid. It's just covering society. It's covering increasingly global society. And maybe where we as journalists went wrong, my generation went wrong in the 60s and 70s, is we bought into Kennedy's notion that it's the magic wand of policy and our job is to cover the public sphere. And by God, all of a sudden, the activism and the epic events were coming out of what we always called ordinary people were doing. And we got caught off guard. We didn't know. My God, there's a religious movement, and it is the most powerful force for social change in the world. Yes, not sustainability, but religion and the quest for respect that we saw with the Iranian Revolution. But what were mullahs? We didn't have any idea. Now we look all over and we find ourselves in California, like me, monolingual, over 60. How can I do mainstream journalism? How can I reflect who we are becoming as the editor of a news service? How can I deliver the communal role of news unless I can read the Korean newspaper? Unless I know that the editorial in the Chinese paper about 3 strikes said Confucius taught that contrition is the most important value raising children. Locking a kid up at the age of 15 will not give him enough time to learn contrition, therefore don't vote for this ballot initiative. Now, they are the largest ethnic group in San Francisco. How can I, as an editor, not know that that's the key editorial? I was on a plane on a red-eye Wednesday night going to Chicago, and a young man sitting in the aisle seat got up and said, "Would you like my chair?" And I said, "No, I'll take the window." And he said, "Oh, well, my grandmother always likes the aisle chair." I said to him, look, dude, you got a long way to go before I'm your grandmother. But I want to say, 1 out of 10 Americans will be 85 or older within the next decade. Are we prepared journalistically to give voice to a society that has never experienced not only racial and ethnic diversity, but the diversity of so many people living longer than ever before? Where are elder voices in our content? Where, for ethnic media, are both elder voices, because ethnic media, our media's demographic skews older, where, of course, as people have said, are youth. So diversity, as Wilbur Schramm taught me, and it's the only lecture I ever attended by a journalism professor, because Lyle Nelson invited me to the opening of Stanford's new building, and it was 1988, I think. And Wilbur Schramm put everybody to sleep except me. He was 84, and he started talking, and I looked around and everybody was asleep, except since I never got to go to lectures, I was real fascinated. And he said, you know who the first great journalist in Western tradition? No, not Herodotus. He said Marco Polo. And I was just thrilled with this idea, because it's about exploring the terra incognita that is so profoundly new to us, that we write, as Marco Polo, we think, wrote, princes, nobles, elders of the realm cause to have read to you this book. Now it's 1988, and I remember verbatim what Wilbur Schramm said in that lecture, and I even remembered his name. I want to say it was a metaphor, that our curiosity, it isn't diversity, it's curiosity. We have to imbue in young people going into this field a profound awe of what it is they don't know. And the terra incognita, where the epic dramas are occurring, is no longer the public realm. It's the activization of millions of people moving, acting on their own interest. And of course, we're not going to know that unless we've read Arlene's book, unless we've read Felix's book. No, seriously,
and
unless
onto your website.
Unless we truly embrace the excitement. And what I worry about our terminology, we're so antiquated in our language. If, please, this great room full of thinking, intellectual, and people devoted to the communal role of news, we need new language. Diversity doesn't do it anymore. It gives students a sense that it's obligation, moral obligation.